Trying to repair a brand new garden bed out of lawn is not easy. Let's talk about what I'm doing this year for the garden. This is mainly for Grandpa Barton, but anybody that has any suggestions, you can put it down in the comments. I would appreciate any suggestions that we could get. So last year, I grew in containers. They were raised bed grow bags that I got from Tractor Supply. Why didn't we grow in raised beds like other people do with the wood on the sides and you fill it with soil? Well, I had no experience in gardening. I would buy something and say, "Oh, this will die nicely at my house." So I had done a little bit of research on raised beds and in the ground gardening and container gardening. And last year, it seemed like a better idea for me to start kind of small and contained. And what I had learned about grow bags is that they prune the roots with oxygen. So when the roots grow to the edge of the container, they don't bind up in the container, they get pruned. So it causes that plant to grow more roots out, and it's actually a very good way to garden. So I tried that last year, and man, it was great. Our vegetables that I did plant, we did great. And for not knowing much, I was really encouraged at the things I grew. Just pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of cucumbers. Now, our tomatoes didn't turn out very well. They weren't very flavorful. Mr. Suburban Prep Setter likes tomatoes. I don't really like tomatoes, fresh tomatoes. Ugh, I don't like the texture. I just have never liked fresh tomatoes. But I do like sauces, marinara, pizza sauce, spaghetti sauce. I like cooked tomatoes in soups and chili and things like that. It wasn't devastating that we didn't have the greatest, most flavorful tomatoes because I was able to cook them down and add some spices and make pretty flavorful sauces. However, one of the mistakes that I made last year with the tomatoes was not being aware of the difference between a determinate and an indeterminate tomato, and not being aware of the size of the tomatoes. Last year, I grew a tomato that was called a red velvet tomato. They were these little tiny tomatoes, and I thought they were bigger tomatoes. So, it being my first year, tomatoes were probably not the greatest, but that's okay because it wasn't a big deal. We still had tomatoes at the grocery store if he wanted a slicer, and we were able to still feel like we had a successful garden. This year, I am attacking it a little more thoughtfully and using a garden planner. So I'm using the Farmer's Almanac garden planner, and this kind of gives you an idea of my raised beds. So these are those raised bed grow bags that I have on here. I have several of them. Oops, we don't want to do that. How about we just hit that little undo? There we go. These are the grow bags that I have and what I'm kind of planning for them. And then we are planning a 1,500 square foot plot that we have uh, a silage tarp, if I'm pronouncing that right. Silage tarp. It's just a huge tarp that we've put down on our uh, grass to kill the grass. And we have bought poultry netting that we plan to put around that area. We can till it. We can let our chickens go into that area and they can scratch and poop and help us get that area ready for planting. So this garden planter is what we plan to grow this year. Now, I also have small containers that can go around the rail of my deck, and a thing with gutters. It's just long pieces of gutter. We put the end pieces on, and he built a little stand for it, and it's great. I can move it around if I want to plant something in it, and I'm not sure about a frost. It's actually something that I can roll in and put right in front of my sliding glass door. These will grow great in that gutter planter that I have. We have a garden way out back. I tried to plant some stuff out there, but I found out that black walnut tree, that part of that area is under the drip line of that walnut tree, that there's a lot of things that don't do well absorbing the jugalone, if I'm pronouncing that right, from the soil from a black walnut tree. So if you have a black walnut tree, don't plant your garden under there. There are some things that will be okay. I think squash and corn, I think, are resistant to the jugalone. But I didn't have any success with that garden because it was all the way out on our property. And it was hard to get water out there, and the weeds were impossible to control. There's pokeweed out there, which I'm actually curious about pokeweed because they say you can eat pokeweed if you boil it. So I might grab some of that pokeweed this year and try it. They say it kind of is like asparagus. This year we're going to grow in the ground closer to the house. So I will have a better chance at growing some broccoli, cauliflower, and other things. So here's the tarp. We had it down for a couple of months in the winter, and when we pulled it up, we had green grass underneath. It either wasn't down long enough, or what I suspect is the tarp kept the soil warm and helped the grass underneath to thrive regardless of no sunlight. So we figured we'd put the poultry netting up and let the chickens go out here and eat. And clearly they have their favorite spots, and free ranging wasn't good. Meanwhile, I have all these plants that I've started in my basement on the pool table that have now had to be up potted to solo cups because they were getting too big for their starter trays, and we have barely broke ground. Then it snowed while I'm trying to harden my plants off. So all I could do was try to keep the plants, watered, and try to put them in this little broken greenhouse. I mean, look at how big these Brussels sprouts have gotten. They're huge. I mean, they look great. They look healthy. But my calendula is falling over. It needs like a support. I need to like stick something in it to raise it up. So anyways, so we decided that the chickens weren't going to do what we wanted them to do. Not to mention that currently in this video, they're getting sick with long rod protozoa bacteria from eating earthworms. Here's my ladies. That's not everybody, but those are the ones that readily get out in the yard. So we decide to till. we start tilling the grass. And the following is our adventure on trying to do that. We are trying to prepare this part of our lawn as a garden bed, and what we have found is our soil has too much clay. It's really hard to dig up the lawn. We've been tilling this section of the lawn. It is really hard, so we are bringing in 50% topsoil, 50% compost. For this garden bed, we've got the poultry netting all pulled back. It's pretty warm out here, so the chickens aren't out. But up there, you'll see I have my potted planters. The asparagus came yesterday, 2-year crown, so I have got to get them in. I mean, working a full-time job, it's really hard to try and homestead or try to, grow food. So I will take you out to the place we don't speak of, our trampoline. We need to repair that. It just needs a net. Last year, this garden, we tilled it, and all we did was till up the weed seed. And within a week, it had a carpet of weeds. And within 3 weeks, there was no weeding it. I don't have time to weed. So this year, we are using the landscaping fabric. So this is the onions. I've planted them in 3 different cycles. So those. Hey, what are you doing down here? What are you doing? You're supposed to be up there with other ladies. Just coming out, visit, or what? What you can? My chicken's coming out to visit me while I'm planting these onions. This is something I probably should have put in the grow bags up there. And I think that I am going to finish this second row of onions and just hope that it helps with deterring pests, and plant the rest of these up there, because I got like 200 some onions, and this is not fun. I need to put something that gets bigger out here, like squash or something that I have to plant farther apart, because this is no. Again, I got a chicken loose too, which means I could have more than one loose. They look like they're all in there though. I don't see anybody else. She is definitely out here with me. Plant a garden. My poor onions. I hope they get better. And then, okay, so over here we have corn that I've put in the ground with seed. And then back here we have squash and melons. So we have cushal, then butternut, then pumpkin, and passion melon. Oh, here, he's back. He's back. So this is how we're hauling the dirt. We're going to a local nursery. It was like, I don't know, some ridiculous price to deliver the soil. So this is how we're doing it. We just have a little utility trailer and they're piling it up in here and we are unloading it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, level up, 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 level up. All this on me so yummy, all this sauce so yummy. No, you want this yummy, yummy all in your tummy. Level up, 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 level up. All this on me so yummy, all this sauce so yummy. No, you want this yummy, yummy all in your tummy. Them old mistakes are gone, I won't do them no more. That's old news, that's new news, I done did that before. I turn nothing to something, my comeback on 100. Let's talk it, more action, you just gon' see coming. I just keep elevating, no losses, just upgrading. My lessons made blessings, I turn that into money. They gotta never settle, this view is so much better. I'm chilling, I'm winning, like on another level. Oh, you can talk all you want. See me, I stay prayed up, nothing I'm afraid of, and I can have it all. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, level up, 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 level up. All this on me so yummy, all this sauce so yummy. No, you want this yummy, yummy all in your tummy. Level up, 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 level up. All this on me so yummy, all this sauce so yummy. No, you want this yummy, yummy all in your tummy. Fake friends get dropped.
In there. Doesn't look like much, but we'll definitely approve it. I traded our truck in just at the right time. We had a V8, and don't get me wrong, I loved our V8, but this truck is a hybrid, so it will go into eco mode, and it's partially electric. You don't plug it in. It charges itself and then it will run. There he goes. Yes, it's hot and sweaty work. But dirty work. But hopefully if the stores do go empty, which I don't really think they will, but you never know, it will definitely offset our grocery bill. Not sure if what we earn labor wise is a fair trade-off, but you know. Oh, he said not this year. He said we will not recoup our costs this year because, you know, gardening requires a certain degree of infrastructure. You can't just throw seeds in the ground and expect them to grow. So, and just because you have dirt doesn't mean it's good dirt, because we certainly do not have good dirt. We have dirt now. So what are we doing next? How are we gonna?
Well, we're gonna fire up the tiller to assist us in spreading the dirt. What we're doing is ditch digging labor. I mean, this is about as hard as the labor part gets.
Right.
Moving dirt. So
Right. Are we going to
prisoners
grab
did
that
this.
compost that's back there and put that up here too?
We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, prisoners did this for jail time. So, this is the hard part of the job.
So our microclimate where we are has these huge thunderstorms that roll through and saturate the ground. So in the meantime, tilling is off. We can continue potting up the railing planters with spinach and bok choy. Look at that. It's coming out so good. That's going to get harvested soon. Some calendula, more lettuce. We like that Gustav salad and that butter crunch there. More calendula, more spinach. The dog. My cool gutter planter. The top row is kind of just one of everything I had left that didn't fit in the other pots. Isn't that pretty? So yummy. This planter, nothing will ever grow there. We found out that kale died and it has too much shade. So nothing can grow there. And then, of course, the rest of the brassicas, some Brussels sprouts and other things. But it's raining again. It's always raining. The tomatoes aren't in the ground. The tomatoes still aren't in the ground. And it's raining. And it's raining some more. The sun's going down. See it out there? Oh, that's kind of pretty. Our yards are all really pretty. And then here's us. We're like digging a hole in the backyard. Oh, but, we're not the worst ones. Because their mowers broke in their defense. Their boy was out there trying to cut it. It died. So we did not get the greenhouse planted. Things are getting bad in there. I got backup planted. So, anyways, that is Mother's Day weekend. Big tree. We'll have green going on soon enough. It's ugly right now. It'll be green soon. So we're a week back on planting now. We're adding compost. It's getting better, but still tilling. Chickens! Can't figure out how to get out. Better. I called and talked to the lady about the asparagus this morning. It's buried here. She said 5 inches of soil over, so I tried to rake some more soil over top of it. Looks like I could probably rake all of this here over top of that. some lettuce. All right, back to harvesting the bok choy. So it looks like we're finally going to get a reprieve from the rain, and the tomatoes still are not planted. However, this weekend is the blessing of the bikes. I go every year. Gotta get that bar and see my friends. Some of these guys I only get to see once a year. But now it's back to endless tilling. Trying to prepare a brand new garden bed out of lawn is not easy. You preppers out there that have your little seed vault and you're like, oh, I'll grow food in SHTF. Yeah, whatever. You can't just throw seeds in the ground and expect them to grow. And this is a huge pain. It has been laborious for sure. They're not happy, but they're not dying. They're planted. They're a little yellow on the bottom, but they're growing taller. I'm gonna fertilize. We've had a lot of rain taking nutrients away from them. And I got some cucumbers there. I gotta get a trellis up. Okay, we're back. The tomatoes are looking a little bit better, but the chickens are sick. They've been to the vet on antibiotics, and we are throwing away hundreds of eggs. They can't be saved. They have to be disposed of. The garden continues to struggle with the inconsistent watering and the hard clay soil. Everything is coming along, but slowly and kind of unwillingly. The tomatoes never really put on a lot of foliage. They will end up fruiting, but they kind of looked like this most of the summer. Next year, we'll have to amend the soil better with fertilizer. There's the asparagus. For its first year, it didn't do bad. It'll look fuller later in the year. The beans and the peas never really worked out. The first time, I think they got washed away, so I re-sowed, and I had these tiny little seedlings coming up, and then something destroyed them. None of them ever got bigger than this little guy. But I did get the zucchini in the ground, and this is what we had about midsummer. No beans or peas or lima beans, that big blank space. However, we had this going on. Those plants that are down are the potatoes. They're supposed to do that. Cabbage. There's some cabbage. Broccoli. That's a volunteer tomato plant. Those are all Brussels sprouts. Those are potatoes. Brussels sprouts, and then there's tomatoes, cucumbers. That's melon. Those are peppers. That's cantaloupe, squash, more peppers. Down there's the asparagus. And then you can see some of the squash growing up on the cattle panel back there. First crack at potatoes wasn't half bad. If you look here, we have a little bit of scab. Not anything to worry about. Some hollow heart. But I recently saw some good information on Lazy Dog Farms channel about potatoes. So we'll be following some of the advice that he offered in his video. As the summer goes on, everything continues to grow, not really thrive. The corn was stunted. The squash did well, but this is as big as the corn got. Hi, Chuck. You made it out. You made it out. Yeah. Oh, well. That just happened. Can I fix your apron? No? You made it out. Well, we've had a number of visitors to our garden, including pests. But this Luna butterfly was really pretty. I have no idea what that bug is, and that spider scared me to death. Okay, I'm super tired and I'm super frustrated. How do you fertilize all of this? Okay, so I don't want to get the leaves wet, right? So I tried filling that tote and using some hose and siphoning it and walking with the wagon or the utility cart and trying to aim the hose at the bottoms of my plants. But I have gotten a ton of fertilizer in my mouth. I've been spitting for 20 minutes, and because it kept, like, I couldn't keep the siphon going. So then I tried just using the bucket. Well, that seems like a waste of time. I feel like I'm pouring too much on each plant. So then I tried the watering can. And the watering can just gets it on the leaves. And it's hard to aim it at all these little holes. So then I made this contraption with the watering can, but I still have to walk around and do all these. Is there a better way? Is there a like granule that I can put around the base of the plant? Or I don't know. I'm super frustrated, and this is taking a lot of time, and I'm tired. And I'm just wondering how people with larger gardens fertilize. I mean, I have the Miracle Grow like sprayer, like thing, but from everything I've heard, you want to try not to get your leaves wet. And I have 50 tomato plants back there. See, and then all of this. So I don't know. Like, maybe somebody has a suggestion on how I can like fertilize all this in, like 10 or 15 minutes. I could put the fertilizer in the tote and use a sump pump and hook the irrigation system up to the sump pump. I don't know. What do you think? Please tell me. I need to know. The thriving zucchini and squash was quickly taken out by this little bugger that I dug out of the stem. I used an X-Acto knife and sliced a tiny little hole, dug him out with tweezers, and I mounded the soil around the bottom of the stem, trying to give them the best chance of survival. The carnage. Here was our last ditch effort for beans. These black coat runner beans were awesome. And so were the Taiwan long beans that we planted. Both were from Baker Creek, and we were really happy with them. We were also pretty happy with our small harvest of squash that was planted in the place we don't speak about. Not a great place to grow, but my one goal was to get cushaw. My mother-in-law cooked cushaw pies for Thanksgiving as a tradition in her family for years and years. Sadly, we lost her just after Christmas, and my one heartfelt goal for my garden was to get a cushaw to make cushaw pies, and I did. The tomatoes continued to grow, not really thrive. They did fruit. I got 10 one-gallon freezer bags of tomatoes, which turned out to be some pretty good sauce. So we just got skunked on watermelon. We're not going to talk about that. We had to relocate the chickens to a local pet boarding facility as we were going to go on vacation and wanted to make sure they were getting daily care. I wasn't as worried about predators because I'm sure they've learned to avoid this yard long ago. We had a fantastic time traveling and enjoying the warm, sunny beach. It was fabulous. But then back home, the asparagus was still going and fall was returning. Things were dialing down in the garden. The bigger pests have arrived. The leaves are falling, and we have no intention on planting a fall garden, but adding this big pile of compost to the top of our garden, hoping it will improve next year. After I got all of that earth moved and spread out, we added a nice cover crop of winter rye. Hopefully, with broad forking next year and adding this compost, our soil will be richer and better draining for a better harvest next year. Although our overall harvest wasn't the big, beautiful, huge bounty as we'd hoped, we were able to take away some vegetables and some very valuable lessons from the experience. We learned that preparing a new garden bed should start in the fall. Also, the health and type of our soil is incredibly important, and that inconsistent watering can really put a strain on our plants. But the most impressive thing that we faced was the immense pest pressure, from cabbage moths and their hungry little wormy spawn to disease-spreading cucumber beetles, squash bugs, slugs, and those dastardly little squash vine borers. Had I not planted a lot, we would have been wiped out. Along with continuing to improve our soil by broad forking, look what I got, and incorporating the compost and rye cover crop, we plan to address all these issues, so hopefully we can have greater success in 2023. This year, I will put the drip tape under the landscaping fabric, as well as installing like connectors to use a sump pump in a tote for mass fertilizer application through the irrigation system. You might see me using insect netting, employing a better like routine of insect foliar sprays, using companion planting to repel pests, and adding coffee grounds to the soil around the plants. You might even see me install a slug tavern. Let them drown in beer. I would also like to direct sow my beans and peas, but I'm currently researching ways to keep them from being eaten up before they're 2 inches tall. So if you have a suggestion, please leave it in the comments. Inquiring minds want to know. I think that we can all agree that the installation of the 1,500 square foot garden was a giant leap for us that we probably weren't really ready for after having only had the raised bed grow bag garden the year before. And that creating that space took more time and effort than either of us really thought. But thankfully, it's in now, and we can move forward to gardening in 2023 with a better understanding of how to grow our own food and prepare for a time when we might really need the ability to do so to thrive. Thank you for watching my video. I know everybody asks, but if you could give me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell to see any videos that we might happen to put up. Learning how to be prepared and as self-sufficient as possible is not cheap or easy, especially when you work full-time and have a family. But it's then that we do it for, right? And if I can help motivate you to prep by showing you how I'm doing it, worth it. And maybe you have a suggestion or advice for me. Please feel free to put that in the comments as well. And remember that knowledge is power, and learning to plan for an uncertain future is wise. Until next time, keep thinking and keep growing.